Hey there, it's Jen and I'm back with another layout for Hip Kit Club. Today I am going to use the August mood board as inspiration. This is what it looks like. So it's got a lot of pinks, a little bit of turquoise, some orange as well. And what I want to do is, we're also challenged to use dies or punches. And so what I want to do is use the color kit, the magicals and the stamp set, and maybe the stencils as well, which I put them somewhere. They're I don't know where I just put them, but they're around here. And then I want to die cut some of these roses from it. And so that's what I'm going to do, is I'm going to use this die to cut out some flowers from the background that I create, and then I will use the August kits, which I keep in this little container, the August kits, to decorate the rest of the layout. And I have these 4 photos of me and my family meeting my nephew for the first time, so those are the photos that I want to use for this layout, and that's where I'm going to get started. So let's go ahead and go through the process.
Alright, so I'm going to start by just putting out some of these magicals and mixing them with some water, and I'm just trying to get some pink colors, some orange colors, and some yellow colors. And I sped this up quite a lot because a lot of what I did for this layout was creating these painty backgrounds to die cut out of, and die cutting and putting together the images. So basically what I'm doing is I'm just trying to get some light areas, some more concentrated colored areas, because when I put the pieces of the die cut flower together, I need the background to be the lightest, and then the next layer needs to be a little bit darker, and then the final layer needs to be a little bit darker than that. So I want to get some varying shades and hues here. And I'm not being careful, like it doesn't really matter, and you'll see when I cut them out, they just look really, really pretty. So you don't have to have skills to do this at all. And you'll see that I have some left over on my mat there, and what I did was I just grabbed a piece of scrap paper and dabbed it up, and that worked great as well. So if you don't want to try putting together your own, like putting it with a paintbrush, then you can just try it with dabbing it up using, like, picking it all up from your craft mat or whatever, or using the smushing technique. So I made some green. I wanted to see how the purple mixed with the yellow would do to make a green, and it actually made a nice yellowy green. So if you only have the magicals from this kit, you can still get a green shade. But I also mixed in some blue from last month's color kit. Now what I'm doing is I'm taking the stamps that came in the color kit that were designed by Femke Coca, who is on the design team as well, and I'm just stamping in some coordinating colors on my background. I just pulled a bunch of stamps that I have in my stash. A bunch of inks. Any inks will work for this. And I'm just stamping them in various saturations as well. So I'm stamping it full strength, and then I'm stamping it off again and again until the ink is all gone, just so I can get some lighter areas. And I'm just using the parts on the stamp set that have a lot of texture to them. So there's one that's it almost looks like text print, but I think it's just lines. That's what I was using just there. And then there's like kind of a honeycomb background type thing, and then there are some little floral pieces. So I'm using a whole bunch of different things to just add a little bit more texture to these papers. The last thing that I'm going to do is take this Vicky Bouton stencil that came in the color kit too, and I am just doing some ink blending. I'm not really blending the inks. I'm just grabbing the ink with one of those life-changing brushes. I have one for each kind of color family, and I am just putting some ink through the stencil. And this is very subtle, but it just adds that little bit of extra texture. And when you look closely at the flowers on the final layout, they have a really great look to them. You'll see in the close-up photos how pretty they look. So here are my final pieces, and I cut them down so that I could die cut out of them. So you can see I'm using that lightest piece on the left to do the big base part of my flower, and then I found something a little bit darker to do the middle shade, and then something bright to do the top layer. So I'm just going to show you one flower here as I cut it out, and then I will turn off the camera and do the rest of them so that you don't have to watch me. But this is how these are going to layer up. So I'm just using the guide here to get that in place. And I like the way that ends up looking. It's really fun. And the bright pink on top just works well. So I'm going to do the middle pieces now. So what I decide to do is cut out a little piece of yellow. And then I'm going to use some cardstock from the cardstock kit to do this little piece that goes over the yellow. I wanted something that was solid and dark, so I used that kind of melon colored cardstock. And then I'm looking for something to do for the center of the flower, and I decide to take 2 of the patterned papers from the kit and put them together to create the center of the flower, because it has 2 layers and they're just both dark blue. So I'm using the lighter blue for the large circle and then the darker blue for the shadow of the circle. I thought before I get started I would show you how these turned out after I glued them together. I think they look really cool. And here are the smaller flowers. Very, very cute. And then I cut a bunch of leaves too. So now I'm going to go ahead and try to find stuff to put it all together from the kit. Okay, so I'm actually going to start with the packaging from this Pretty Little Studio Indian Summer something. I think they all have this same packaging, but I really loved this plaid and it matched the flowers I created really well. So I am just cutting some pieces, trying to figure out how I can line them with my photos. And I wish that this was a big pattern paper. I just would like to cut a 12 by 12 strip of it, but it's not. So I'm looking through the pattern papers to see what I might be able to cut a 12 by 12 strip of to get a similar look. And nothing is really striking my fancy. So what I'm going to do is just trim this down, this background paper down, and then glue down my photos and then kind of figure out what exactly I want to do for that border. I'm using my grid mat on the background. I'm going to use that to help me line up my photos. So I'm just placing my, I guess I'm going to do this first. I decide to cut up that background, and I'm just going to do, they're 3/8 inch strips, and I'm just going to line them up under the photos. Here I'm using the background grid to line everything up, and you can see I'm lining the top of the photos up with that. It's 2 inches from the top. I kind of wish I would have done 3 inches from the top, but whatever. So I just decide to use these 3/8 inch strips and just piece them together. They don't match up, but it's okay. And I plan to cover up the join where I can. So I just want to make sure I have some of that bright pink showing on all of the plaid pieces. And so I did that, and then there was a little piece that I needed on the end, so I just put another piece there, and most of those joins will get covered up. So I knew I wanted to use this word adore from the Paige Evans Puffy stickers, and I am going to have the title say "We totally adore him." And I'm just using some wax paper to kind of spell it out here. And I'm using the yellows and the orangey pinks from these came in, I think, the Pocket Life kit. They are the Pinkfresh Studio little alphabets. It came with some blue and purple ones, which you can kind of see in the bottom corner there, and then some pink and orange and yellow ones. And they just match so perfectly with this. And so I'm happy about that. And the D in adore is going to cover up the join where those 2 plaid pieces meet. So now I'm going to play around with the flowers and create some clusters. I created 3 of each flower, so I'm going to put 1 of each at the top and 2 of each at the bottom, and then add the leaves in wherever I feel like they work. And this layout actually came together pretty quickly after I had all of the flowers done, because I scrap lifted myself. I did a similar layout to this not too long ago. It's on my YouTube channel. I'll try to remember to link it at the end of this video, but anyway, I scrap lifted myself, so it was quick and easy to do. I thought about using some of those watercolor splotches stickers, but I decided against it. And I really like that puffy sticker that says "For the Record." That's from Pinkfresh Studio Office Hours. And so I put that above "We totally adore him." And I'm looking through the Paige Evans die cuts to see if anything might work here. You can see at the top I pulled that green bird, and then in the die cuts I pulled another bird. So I'm adding birds to each one of the clusters, a bigger one in the bottom cluster. And then I also have that Yay Puffy sticker that was from Pinkfresh as well. I'm thinking about some hearts now. That little heart in the button, the wooden button, is from Pinkfresh Studio, and it matched perfectly on this layout. And after a while, I kind of decide to do away with the wood because I think I try later, but it bugged me that there was only one thing that had the wood around it. And so I was going to try to add another wood button, but none of the other ones quite matched. So anyway, I'm pulling a few other things that I might want to use. And while I'm still kind of thinking a little bit, I'm going to go ahead and glue down my title. And so I'm just kind of nestling the word totally in between the D and then where the E comes up just a little bit. And I really love the way it looks when you kind of nestle your titles together. If you haven't heard me say nestle, you must be new here. Hi, welcome. I like to nestle things. So the word him is going to kind of go down right next to where the D comes down a little bit. And I'm going to pop up this large flower and kind of overlap it. Again, when you put things next to each other and kind of have them touching and overlapping, they really feel like they belong together and not like they're just kind of thrown on. So I'm playing around with the leaves a little to see where I want to place them, and I rip some of them apart just so I can have a little bit of a smaller leaf cluster here and there, and I really like the way it is looking. I'm going to go ahead and do the bottom cluster, and so I glued one of the big flowers flat and then I popped one of them up, and now I'm going to glue down the leaves behind them. I really love florals. I never get sick of them. I just think that they are a great way to fill a layout, and they're just pretty and I love them. So even though this is a layout about my new little nephew, there's girls in it, me and my daughter, and it doesn't matter if there's not girls in it. I wanted to use these flowers, so I did. And I think that's totally okay. So I have those little hearts sitting out. Those are from Paige Evans' Pink Paislee Truly Grateful little pack, and I'm going to add those in a little bit. First, I'm going to figure out where I want the birds, and I kind of tucked the birds into the leaves and flowers just a little. And then I'm going to tuck that little puffy sticker that says yay on it as well up above that little kind of aqua colored flower there. And here's where I decide to take that little dot off of that button. I'm going to peel it off here in just a second because I don't like the fact that there are no other wooden pieces on this. So I did think about adding some of the wood veneer pieces that come in the Paige Evans little collection thingy, but I decided against it. I also thought that there needed to be a little bit more of that bright yellow that says for the record at the top, and so I decided to add in this little clock as well, and it has that same color, so I felt like that worked really well. And I, in my journaling, talk about spending time with him is the best, so I thought that worked fine. And I used some of those hearts to just kind of scatter around. And now I'm going to use some of these word stickers that are from the Pink Paislee, what is that called? Truly Grateful collection. And I'm going to place them right there next to the flowers. And then I'm going to place my journaling below it. So I go and print up my journaling, and I'm cutting it out on my little guillotine trimmer here from Tonic. And I'm going to end up cutting up the journaling so that it kind of fits and nestles to the flowers, but I don't want it to stick out too far from those word strips because I feel like it creates a weird space between the bottom of the left photos and the journaling. So I kind of just tucked it underneath those word strips, and then I have it go from there and then build out just a little bit. So I thought that worked out well. I'm using my Nuvo Deluxe Adhesive glue to glue all those down, and then I stamped the date. And then as a final finishing touch, sorry for my hair, it is cray. I'm using my Magicals, and I'm going to create a little bit more just color to splatter on the background. And so I'm just mixing a little bit of the pink and yellow with my paintbrush. And then what I'm going to do, instead of the normal way of flicking it on, I'm using my stamping block to just kind of flick the paint on from my, so I'm just dragging the paintbrush on the block and flicking it off of it, and it gives a more controlled splatter. I wanted a little bit of pink, and so I added some, and I am just flicking that now, and that will complete the layout. I really loved making this, and I love the way that the colors turned out. I don't want to waste any of that pigment, so I'm just putting it on a scrap paper that I can cut out of later. And there it is. So here are some close-up photos. You will see in the close-up photos of the flowers all that gorgeous texture from the stamping and the inking, and I love it. So if you have any questions, let me know. I will link to all available products in the video description, and be sure to check out hipkitclub.net for these gorgeous August kits. Thanks for watching, and if you don't subscribe, hit that button to see more videos from me each and every week, and thanks so much for stopping by.